I'm the best. I'm the best in the world. I've been the best ever since day one. I am the best wrestler in the world.
Throughout his career, CM Punk has been a figure of controversy both on screen and behind the scenes. CM Punk's character, CM Punk's legacy, has been defined by the controversy that has continuously surrounded his name, and everywhere he's gone, he's pushed the envelope of pro wrestling in a way that galvanizes the fans. Just look at what he's done on screen throughout his career. The Summer of Punk storyline in Ring of Honor, his run as a cult leader through the Straight Edge Society, hell, even the pipe bomb promo itself that turned him into an icon.
I have a lot of things I want to get off my chest.
Both on screen and behind the scenes, Punk has always been the voice that is ready to stir up change. However, after a while, that same anti-authority voice would end up tearing him down in the eyes of the fans. The same punk rock counterculture attitude that pushed fans into loving him has turned him into a sort of bitter man that has pushed many of those same fans away. So, my name is Grease with Wrestleology, and today, let's take a look back at CM Punk. Let's go through the history of this man who launched a career into the stratosphere before using that same rocket fuel to burn it down. This is the controversial history of CM Punk. However, before we can begin talking about his most recent developments in AEW, we need to look back at 2011. After feeling underutilized throughout his time in WWE, CM Punk's contract was expiring heading into the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, and as he was gearing up for a match against John Cena for the WWE Championship, CM Punk would now cut an infamous promo that has been shared time and time again by wrestling fans and is my personal favorite promo of all time. And this, of course, was the pipe bomb.
There's one thing you're better at than I am, and that's kissing Vince McMahon's ass.
A promo that, if you're watching this video, I'm sure you've probably already heard of before. Sitting atop the ramp, Punk would cut a scathing promo on the company, and he would break the fourth wall, talking about the declining state of the business, and say some pretty harsh things about the McMahon family.
That maybe this company will be better after Vince McMahon's dead, but the fact is, it's gonna get taken over by his idiotic daughter and his doofus son-in-law and the rest of his stupid family.
At the time, it was unheard for someone to talk about such taboo things in WWE, and while it's commonplace today for people to do things like this, at the time, it was forbidden in the company. Viewership around this time was down in the lead up to the pipe bomb, all because of those things Punk mentioned during his speech, but finally fans saw someone brave enough to actually address things that many fans were already feeling at the time, and this turned Punk into an overnight megastar for wrestling fans. Punk was the only guy on screen with the balls to say what many fans were already thinking, and in this moment, Punk's controversial words became the start of a revolution, with fans now eager to see what the pro wrestling landscape would do following this earth-shattering moment. As the weeks went on, the storyline between Punk and Cena grew as everything they said felt real and from the heart. For once, fans could actually believe in what was happening, as most of what they were saying was actually happening. And in my opinion, Punk was 100% right to call out the company. Punk's contract was actually coming to an end, and there was every possibility heading into that match at Money in the Bank that Punk would leave the company with the WWE title.
And trust me when I tell you, I am leaving with the WWE Championship.
And finally, there was a storyline on screen that didn't insult our intelligence, as Punk represented those that WWE chose to ignore. He was, as his future nickname would suggest, the voice of the voiceless. And then, in the main event of Money in the Bank, the Chicago crowd erupted as their hero won the WWE Championship before blowing a kiss goodbye to Vince McMahon himself. Punk, as WWE Champion, became the biggest pro wrestler in the world without even being on TV. Fans were just itching to see what would happen next, before once again being disappointed. Despite how hard CM Punk would work over the next few years, Punk would constantly be placed on the back burner following his swift return to the company. Sure, Punk was WWE Champion for 434 days, however, he was always positioned underneath the quote-unquote real stars like The Rock, Triple H, and John Cena. This only made fans love Punk even more, while growing in their hatred for WWE throughout the run. And then we fast forward to January 2014, and by this point, CM Punk was still white hot with the build up to WrestleMania 29 on the horizon, and as fans were gearing up to see what he would do next, we would all soon come to learn that CM Punk had shockingly walked out on the company. The guy who represented the true voice of the people was no longer in the WWE. And this is where we get the first bit of real life drama surrounding Punk in this video. After disappearing from our screens, CM Punk would appear as a guest on the Colt Cabana Art of Wrestling podcast.
Hey Colt Cabana, how you doing?
Cabana, known as being a talented wrestler in his own right, as well as Punk's real-life best friend, gave him a platform to air his grievances with the WWE. And there, in what was one of my favorite podcasts I've probably ever listened to in my life, Punk talked about why he left in a way that shattered the WWE's reputation. Punk revealed that he was misdiagnosed with an MRSA infection that, if not treated, could have potentially killed him, with the WWE doctors refusing to touch it. Punk would talk about his final meeting with Vince and Triple H, where he told them that he was going home for good after telling them all the reasons why he hated working for them. He would talk about his real life frustrations with guys like Triple H and Ryback, who he had never had a good relationship with backstage. He talked about his career frustrations constantly being overlooked for the company men like Cena and The Rock, and he would even reveal that WWE fired him on his wedding day, a day that they would have known about due to his wife still being in the company and having to have scheduled time off for this big day. Punk, as a figure of controversy, only grew throughout this podcast interview. The fans who stood by him in his quest to change the WWE for the better now continue to stay by him in his quest to burn down everything wrong with the company. Punk's passion for professional wrestling was gone, and WWE killed it. After busting his ass for the company, continuously proving to be a top star despite the WWE's wishes, Punk was still not good enough for them. He stood on top of the mountain, only to find that there were people desperately trying to push him off, and that was the legacy of CM Punk in pro wrestling for quite a while. He was the one guy that proved to the fans what we had already known. It doesn't matter how hard you work in the WWE, it doesn't matter how many fans you bring in, and it doesn't matter what us, the fans, think. In WWE, you're only a top guy if they want you to be. But life moves on. CM Punk would file a lawsuit against the WWE doctor Christopher Amann over his misdiagnosis before getting into another legal battle with actually Colt Cabana this time due to incidents both professional and personal surrounding the lawsuit against the doctor. In his absence from wrestling, Punk would pursue other passions like acting, writing, and even fighting within the UFC, where his lack of experience led to multiple high-profile losses, so we're not going to talk about that too much. But throughout that time, CM Punk's legacy would linger throughout the wrestling world. Whenever the WWE booked a show for Chicago, it was expected that CM Punk's name would be chanted by the audience.
CM Punk! CM Punk! CM Punk!
Yo, I know, annoying video interruption, but before we continue, guys, I want to let you guys know about my Kick channel, kick.com/Greesh. Link is going to be in the description. I am trying to get into live streaming a little bit more, and this Saturday, as you guys know, is WWE Fastlane, so we're going to be reacting to the whole pay-per-view on stream, as well as just doing other fun stuff on stream other days as well. So yeah, I'm trying to hit affiliate on there right now, which is 75 followers. I think we're at like 49 right now, so if you guys could drop a follow, that would be really appreciated, as well as tune into the Fastlane live stream, because I want to hang out with you guys and just talk some wrestling and stuff like that. Anyways, not going to take up any more of your guys' time. Thank you guys so much, and hope you enjoyed the rest of the video. Fans for 7 years were just itching for CM Punk. The guy who represented us against the WWE was gone, and the love for Punk lingered throughout the entire building. But while Punk himself was gone from the company, the revolution he started would actually continue. With the WWE product continuing to tune out fans, people would start looking for other sources of pro wrestling entertainment. New Japan Pro Wrestling in particular grew beyond anyone's expectations, with the Bullet Club becoming the biggest stable in the entire pro wrestling business. Off the back of New Japan's growth, as well as those within the Bullet Club like Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, and reinvigorated Cody Rhodes, Tony Khan would see a golden opportunity. While the WWE was an institution of sports entertainment, it was the institution that fans had grown kinda tired of. So, Khan decided to put together a new company that would rival WWE, featuring pro wrestling stars that looked to create a revolution, and this was the birth of All Elite Wrestling. Over its first few years, AEW grew bigger than anybody possibly expected. It would showcase legends of the past like Chris Jericho, superstars of the present like Kenny Omega, and talented young competitors of the future like MJF. And it would do this while simultaneously drawing record-breaking fans that had finally found a wrestling show that they could sink their teeth into. Those fans that Punk would represent in WWE, the voiceless that he himself was the voice of, would tune into Dynamite. In Punk's absence, his single voice grew into a company that catered towards the hardcore wrestling fan. And judging by the success of AEW, it was clear that his revolution resonated with millions. But despite the raging success of AEW, fans still ached to see Punk back in the ring, and after AEW's rapid growth into the second biggest promotion in pro wrestling, fans would finally get to see their hero return. On August 20th, 2021, CM Punk would make his AEW debut, an event that saw fans crying in joy at the sight of their heroes standing in a wrestling ring for the first time in nearly a decade. The man who began the revolution was finally back home to help lead that revolution. He would put on excellent matches against the likes of Darby Allin, Eddie Kingston, and especially my favorite, MJF, throughout his first year in the company. Punk returned with a vengeance, and the fans ate it all up as he continued to prove why he was still the best in the world. However, something changed in May of 2022. By that point, Punk had begun a feud with the AEW World Heavyweight Champion Hangman Adam Page, and everything seemed to be going well, usual back and forth banter, until the two top babyfaces in the promotion came to a face-to-face on the May 25th episode of Dynamite. There, they would exchange words, with Page announcing his displeasure for his challenger by saying that he will defend AEW from CM Punk. Now, while on paper that promo seemed pretty typical to fans, something about it seemed to rub Punk the wrong way. Notably, Page had a pretty odd line during the promo, calling Punk out for publicly supporting workers' rights while privately doing the opposite.
You talk a big game about workers' rights, yeah? Well, you've shown the exact opposite since you've gotten here.
And sure, it was a bit weird in the moment, but fans were used to lines like this in AEW. After all, many of the promos in AEW did stuff like this, constantly looking to make the storyline feel more real, with people throwing allegations toward each other all the time. But something about this line seemed to really affect Punk. This also came after months of backstage animosity between Punk and the Elite, and many in the Elite believing that CM Punk was involved in AEW's decision to not renew Colt Cabana's contract. And considering the personal animosity between Colt and Punk, it wasn't that hard to see where they were coming from. But despite this tension though, Page and Punk were able to put their differences aside during the main event of Double or Nothing, where Punk was able to win the AEW World Championship. However, during the bout, Punk would suffer a foot injury that took him out of action, as an interim champion was soon crowned in Jon Moxley. And soon Punk actually made his return, as he claimed to be the real world champion of AEW. During this return, as a match between Moxley and Punk was made for the following episode of Dynamite, Punk would call out Adam Page. And this scene was very odd, considering Page wasn't even in the building that night, with Punk looking to go into business for himself to bury Page for seemingly no reason. After doing this, fans got a sense that something deeper was happening between the two men, but despite this, on the 24th episode of Dynamite, Moxley and Punk were scheduled to fight for the right to be world champion, before Moxley shockingly defeated Punk in almost like a squash match, essentially. Something about this incident just felt off with the fans. Not only had Punk cut that bizarre promo on Page the week before, but the match was worked to have Punk suffer an injury in the match, giving Mox a quick victory. However, even without the mention of Page, it was still a weirdly booked match for the fans, since All Out was only a few weeks later, with this match having the potential of being a main event battle at the event. So around this time, AEW's reputation would actually decline. Earlier in the year, an angle featuring MJF bad-mouthing the company took place, with him infamously cutting his own pipe bomb on AEW, and this angle, along with the odd booking and weird attitude surrounding Punk, left many fans to think that something bad was happening just under the surface. And unfortunately, they were right. Following the rematch between Mox and Punk at All Out, a rematch that saw Punk regain the world title, the scheduled post-show media scrum became the biggest talking point in wrestling for all the wrong reasons. Punk, a featured guest during the media scrum, used the platform to address all of his backstage issues in the company. He talked about ruined friendships with Colt Cabana, he discussed the distaste of the Elite as EVPs in the company, he addressed his personal hatred of Adam Page, and the real-life anger of CM Punk was all summed up in his infamous line, "I'm hurt, I'm old, I'm effing tired, and I work with effing children."
I'm hurt, and I'm old, and I'm tired, and I work with children.
Not only was all this real-life drama being brought out into the public, but Punk's words carried an additional weight as Tony Khan sat there next to him, unable to speak as all of this was shared. The whole wrestling world was taken by surprise, including those in the back, and after leaving the panel, Punk was confronted by Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks backstage, and this confrontation led to a fight between Punk, Omega, Matt and Nick Jackson, and Ace Steel, who was on Punk's side during the brawl. All parties were immediately suspended, with the world title as well as the Elite's newly won trios titles all being stripped, and this altercation created a divide between those who sided with the Elite and those who sided with CM Punk. This divide wasn't just seen with fandom, no, the divide was spread throughout the locker room as well. During the suspension, Punk would undergo surgery to repair an injury suffered during his match at All Out, and this kept him off TV for 9 months. Now, no matter how you look at it, the entire situation left a sour taste around AEW. Some fans grew angry at Punk, some started hating the Elite, others started to see Tony Khan as a failure of a leader, and many more had a conflicting feeling about all parties involved. Despite All Out's critical success with impressive matches throughout the night, the event has forever been tainted due to the post-show actions of CM Punk and is now known as AEW Brawl Out. The problem grew only worse in Punk's absence from television. With Tony Khan unable to help everyone work through their differences, Khan was put in a tough position as the middleman between the Elite, the guys who helped create AEW alongside him, and CM Punk, the company's biggest star. And with the situation between all parties seemingly unfixable in the build-up to CM Punk's return, Khan would make a controversial decision in his own right. If he couldn't make them stay in the same building long enough to do business, then he would just artificially separate the Elite and CM Punk. And Khan soon announced that AEW would have a new weekly show on Saturday nights called AEW Collision. This show would be the home of Punk, with the Elite staying on Dynamite. Collision also became the home of many other stars that Khan had reportedly had issues with, like Andrade and Miro. If the company didn't feel divided before, it certainly did now, and during its debut episode, Punk made his return for the first time in 10 months, and there he would cut a promo talking about his future, as he still had the AEW World Championship that was vacated after All Out. Of course, he did also take a few jabs at the Elite, saying that he will never compromise, before going on to say, "I am the one true Bill in a business full of counterfeit bucks."
That's because I am the one true, genuine article in a business full of counterfeit bucks.
This was a good start to Punk's new path in Collision, with things only getting worse from there though. Over the next few months, while Punk would begin feuding with Ricky Starks and Samoa Joe, he would continue his personal backstage rivalry with the Elite by banning certain wrestlers from Collision. Acting like a backstage dictator over the show, he would stop anyone who didn't agree with him from entering the building. People like Ryan Nemeth, which is Dolph Ziggler's brother, Matt Hardy, and even the head of talent relations, Christopher Daniels, were all banned from the show, with fans quick to pick up that they're all friends of the Elite backstage. Soon, the animosity between Punk and the rest of the roster would come to a head. At AEW All In 2023, the biggest show in the history of AEW, another backstage altercation would take place. After Punk had previously denied him the chance to use real glass on Collision, Jack Perry would end up using real glass of a car window as a part of a spot during the All In 0 hour. But before doing so, Perry looked down at the camera, knocking on the glass before saying,
Jack
You know what
Perry
this is right
launching
here?
and then crushing
Real glass.
the
Go
abdomen.
cry me a river.
"You know what this is? Real glass. Go cry me a river." And following the match, as Perry walked through the curtain backstage, he was confronted by CM Punk. Punk continued to get fired up during the conversation, before reportedly throwing the first punch and starting yet another brawl with Perry, which resulted in him choking out the former Jungle Boy. Following the fight, Punk would continue to shout, "I hate this place," before proceeding towards gorilla position for his scheduled match against Samoa Joe. That, with also rumors of him potentially even trying to attack Tony Khan. Following this incident, Tony Khan was left with no choice but to terminate Punk under the unanimous recommendations of the AEW Discipline Committee. Tony Khan later addressed the decision further, saying the incident was regrettable and it endangered people backstage. That includes the production staff who put on the show every week, innocent people who had nothing to do with it, and he went on to say that his own personal safety, in his opinion, was in danger in those moments. The week following All In, AEW hosted another pay-per-view in All Out, and this event would take place in Chicago, a city that has become synonymous with Punk himself. There, notably, AEW fans of the Windy City chose to act in support of the show despite Punk being released just days before. Sure, the Young Bucks were booed during their entrance, but they were later cheered due to their impressive ring work. Hangman Adam Page and Kenny Omega were also loved by the audience, which is pretty surprising. When Punk left WWE, Chicago would try to hijack WWE shows whenever possible, but here, due to the negativity surrounding him over the prior year, fans chose to put CM Punk behind them in support of AEW. After all, while CM Punk was a beloved figure up until the past year, the love of the crowd didn't stem solely from their love for him as a performer. Punk's pipe bomb promo, the one that created a character shrouded in controversy, people loved the promo because of the revolution he described in pro wrestling. Sure, fans loved Punk, but it was the hope for a revolution that pushed him into becoming one of the biggest stars of this generation. But in his absence, that revolution continued on. You could even argue that it was only after Punk left WWE when the revolution really started taking off, as smaller guys like Daniel Bryan, Seth Rollins, Adam Cole, and more rose to the prominence in the land of giants. Sure, Punk may have lit the match, but it was guys like them who truly burned down WWE's walls in order to change the business for the better. While Punk was off becoming a bitter old man, the Elite grew into a global phenomenon before finally creating AEW, and since Punk joined the promotion, he's been a much more negative figure than many would like to admit, and that's coming a lot from me because CM Punk is honestly my favorite pro wrestler of all time. Was he AEW's most popular star? Yeah, but this new generation, the one that continued his revolution in his absence, proved to be bigger than Punk could ever be. Triple H said it best in his promo against Punk on SmackDown many years ago.
But when you talk about being the catalyst for change, really what you mean is you will only accept change if it means CM Punk is on top. Because unless CM Punk is the guy, the man, that's not enough change for you. That's not really what you want.
And back then, we heard that quote under the belief that Triple H was wrong. These days, after everything that's happened with Punk over the years, I think we might have been backing the wrong horse all along. I still would love to see Punk potentially make a return to pro wrestling, maybe even the WWE, which would be absolutely amazing for me, but I hope his attitude backstage and stuff just changes because his controversies in AEW led to us not really truly experiencing an amazing CM Punk run that I feel like we all felt like we wanted and deserved. Let me know what you guys think, and if you enjoyed the video, subscribe with notifications turned on to not miss the next one. Thank you for watching.